Hey Max and Mavericks, Happy New Year and welcome back to the Mac the Maverick YouTube channel where we generally talk all things well-rounded womanhood, but sometimes like today, we deal with universal topics like hair. Everybody has hair unless you're bald, but you had anyway, hair, self-esteem, and sometimes complicated community issues like hair typing. I saw a post on Instagram last week from Brown Skin Derm. If you're not following her on Instagram and you're over there, do follow her. She gives fantastic advice on skincare, especially for brown skin. But anyway, she reposted a thread from Monarch Curl Studio that had this to say: the day Black women release hair types and type 4 will be the day we will be truly free. And Brown Skin Derm actually decided to open up the discussion with a poll. Is hair typing useful or for you, or do you find it restrictive or a marketing ploy? And interestingly enough, of the 430 responses that she received, was borderline split down the middle, with 51% of respondents saying yes, we should get rid of hair typing, and 49% saying no, we should not get rid of hair typing. And as frequently as this comes up on the internet in various places, and because I do review hair products quite often on this channel and on the Mac the Maverick blog, I thought it would be a great topic to explore with you all. So get your keyboards ready as I discuss this. Y'all get in the chat and let me know your thoughts on this topic. So this is gonna be kind of impromptu. I actually have some notes, but I'm probably not gonna look at them. I think I have enough thoughts to just come off the cuff. Okay, so when we're talking about hair typing in this particular context, we're actually referring to this chart right here. And in order for us to deal with this chart right here, we need to talk about this guy. This is Andre Walker. If you're not familiar with Andre Walker, he is an award-winning hairstylist from Chicago, and he was largely blown up and made famous to the public by this lady right here. So back in maybe 1986, Andre Walker saw Oprah Winfrey on her show, and he sent her a dozen roses and a note that said, hey, I would love to do your hair. And Oprah was like, okay, bet. And the rest was history. Andre Walker was actually Oprah Winfrey's personal hairstylist for the better part of 3 decades, and he was the chief hair guy on the Oprah Winfrey show for the length of its run. So decorated, he's done hair for the likes of our forever floaters, Michelle Obama. He's done Barbara Bush's hair, the late Barbara Bush, as well as being credited with this icon right here. So big name from the 80s and the 90s, one of the premier, I would say, celebrity stylists of the time. So somewhere in the 90s, Andre Walker developed his own hair care line called the Gold System. And in order to promote the Gold System, he produced this hair chart, the one that is so ubiquitous, we don't even think about where it came from anymore. So most of us, if you watch this channel, you're probably familiar with the chart, but if not, it basically categorizes hair by texture, with 1 being straight hair, 2 being wavy hair, 3 being curly hair, and 4 being kinky hair, with delineations within these categories like A, B, and C for the degree of pattern within those particular categories. Now, this was created again as an offshoot of a particular product line that Andre Walker developed, particularly for natural or textured hair at the time. And over the years, it has become so ingrained in the language of hair, specifically textured hair, specifically natural hair, specifically Afro hair or hair of people of African descent. And with that has come some controversy. So in terms of the cons that a lot of people are expressing, I'm gonna go back actually to this Instagram post. I never liked that hair typing stuff. To me, it's another ism of a so-called hierarchy of whose hair texture is better. I'm glad I love the hair I have. I understand what you mean, but being able to product share even amongst us with similar textures isn't easy. Someone could have the same texture as me, yet a different porosity, and their product recommendations won't work in my hair. Trust, I have tried this before. I don't think categorizing things is necessarily bad. However, having a vertical hierarchy attached to the categories is bad. We should be able to categorize without creating inequality for all. Agreed. The concept of hair type was developed as a marketing strategy. Brands recognized an opportunity to profit from the complexities of Black hair, turning it into a commercial commodity. So we touched on a bunch of different themes just within these four or five threads or Instagram posts. I believe they're all threads. And I will link this post in the description bar if I can, so you can go to it for yourself. But amongst the major cons, first of all, people point out that it's not comprehensive. So you look at this chart, you see straight hair, you see wavy hair, you see curly hair, you see kinky hair. And any of us that have hair, especially those of us with textured hair, can tell you that no head is the same. Most of us have more than one texture or pattern or diameter of curl in your head. I know I do. Like, my hair is completely different all over. I show you all that purposely every time I do a hair product review, right? So it's not all encompassing. It's not all encompassing. Yeah, and then to the point of the poster that spoke to porosity, there are other variables that kind of determine how we handle our hair, what products we decide to use. We could all have the same diameter of kink, but one person's hair might be more porous than the other. One person's lifestyle might be different. Their climate. Somebody might live in a dry climate. Somebody might live in a humid climate. The list goes on of variables that live outside of this chart. But the more pervasive complaint is that this hair typing system perpetuates texturism, which is the idea, much like skin color, that one or more textures are better than others, and the biases and some of the mistreatment even that is an offshoot of that belief. And in the natural hair community, let's just get out the natural hair community for a second. In the world, I would say this negatively affects those of us with quote unquote type 4 hair the most. Like, I remember I always wanted to be natural. I've never actually told my natural hair story. Maybe that's a video for another day if y'all want it. But I got my first relaxer probably when I was about 5. I was real little. And when I got to be about 15, I started toying with textured hair. I would do straw sets. I would do Bantu knot outs, anything to kind of begin to mimic texture versus the relaxed hair that I had always had for as long as I could remember. And I remember first the discouragement just in general against growing out a relaxer. This was back in the early 2000s, and we hadn't had this total resurgence of natural hair like we did, you know, a little bit later on. I was relaxed, my mama was relaxed, my grandmama was relaxed. Everybody in my immediate vicinity just about had a relaxer. The 2000s, the 90s, that's just kind of where we were. Anyway, but there was always this concept, even amongst relaxed hair, that straighter was better. And we were basically judging. That's so crazy. We had relaxed hair. Everybody was getting their hair straightened or pressed, but yet we would still find a way to judge each other's new growth. The 1/4 inch or however much hair that you grew between your touch-ups, people would still use that to categorize and denigrate you. But back to what I was saying about the discouragement, when I finally did grow out my relaxer and do my big chop, I noticed the looks, I noticed the comments, some, you know, from family members, they just weren't used to it. I even noticed in the workplace the difference in how I was treated when I wore my natural hair versus when my hair was pressed, or later on when I wore extensions that weren't mine. So yes, if you don't think texturism is real, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that, but it is very much a real thing. And with this particular chart, people feel like 1 being straight and 4 being kinky shows an inordinate amount of importance or value. Like, when you rank things, you generally rank them number 1 and down. So when they see the 1 through 4, they immediately feel like straight is number 1, and that it's a perpetuation of that those stereotypes and those biases. On the flip side, the pros of hair typing mainly lie in communication and education. So again, going back to when I first became natural, there wasn't a ton of education out there. I mean, YouTube. When I first cut my hair in 2009, YouTube was only 4 years old. 4, just 4. It was brand spanking new. And there weren't a ton of products. And what products you'd have, like Pantene, relaxed and natural. I think Motions might have had a relaxed and natural line. Yes, natural hair is natural, unprocessed hair, or, well, even there's controversy with that. But natural hair is a thing that is not relaxed for that purpose, but that means so many different things. I have curls, generally speaking, the diameter of a pin spring. Some a little bigger, maybe some a little smaller. But somebody I know that has marker size curls is just as much natural as me. Somebody with natural beach waves is technically just as natural as me, but I can't necessarily use the same products and get the same results. Maybe you beg to differ, but in my experience, I can't use the same products as somebody with a natural S curl, a wave nouveau, whatever. And so a lot of us just starting out, we were product junkies. I think that's how product junkies were born. It's always been a hallmark of the natural hair journey to have to experiment with products and have some trial and error to figure out what works for you and your hair. But some argue that having hair typing helps narrow that field down a lot more. Also, on the side of communication, it's easier to kind of describe hair, especially in environments that are not visual, when you can just say, I have type 4 hair, which more on that later. So that actually is a good segue to my personal opinion of the hair typing system. So in terms of whether or not I feel we should get rid of the hair typing system, my answer is no. Okay? I value both the pros and the cons that I just named. I understand both sets of values and why they exist. I really do. But ultimately, I don't think the issue is with the tool itself, but in the way that it's being used. For example, a running thread amongst the detractors from the Andre Walker hair typing system is that the hair typing system is useless, mainly because it's not comprehensive and it's all encompassing. But I personally kind of feel like that's a stretch, because sometimes just because a product or an item is not all purpose does not mean it doesn't have a purpose, right? For example, going back to the point about communications, I review hair products for the public in this forum and some other places. And I feel like, especially with some of the things we just talked about, pervasive texturism and all this kind of stuff, I feel a responsibility to communicate information and stuff about my hair and how the products I review behave in it as clearly and honestly and as accurately as possible. And so in a space like YouTube, right here on this channel, I do a video. Let's say I'm reviewing a shampoo or a conditioner or something like that. The first thing I do is, when I wet my hair, I spin around and I show you all what my hair looks like with no product in it, so you can get an understanding of the texture and the behavior of my hair and whether or not you identify with it, right? And so you have that visual reference. You can see in real time what's going on with it. But in other spaces, like my blog or when I'm anonymously talking hair on Reddit, it's a little bit trickier for me to describe that. And yes, I can tell you that my hair is kinky. I can tell you that my hair is coily. But again, that means something totally different to totally different people. To what degree is it kinky? To what degree is it curly? So on and so forth. And the hair typing system is not perfect in that regard too, but most people, even if it's not 100% all the way unanimous in interpretation, if I tell you I have the entire gamut of type 4 hair, for A, for B, and for C throughout my head, you probably have some idea of what that means. So I don't think that the hair typing system is useless in that aspect. Also, on that same note, as a person who creates content, especially a Black woman that creates content, I am fighting with search engines and algorithms all the time, trying to get my content to the people that would actually benefit from it. And so I have to kind of either lean in or work with what the wizard pulling the levers wants. So I have to put sometimes type 4 on my videos or whatever the case may be to feed it into a search engine where you can type in some sort of term and be able to find me. And sure, again, you could just say kinky, you could just say coily, you could say curly, but if I type in curly hair on YouTube, it's not gonna pull my hair type. That's an issue in its own right. That's a topic for another day, but I have to be able to tell YouTube and Google and Instagram and Reddit or whatever something to get me to what I want to watch, and vice versa, to get me in front of you who might want to watch me. And so in my own personal journey with my own hair, if I go way back, like Rustic Beauty, I used to watch Rustic Beauty's content when I first cut my hair because she was one of the first YouTubers that had hair that looked like mine. Nappy Food, African Beauty, Natural 85, Whitney, all of those people, being able to find representation is not necessarily segregation, it's representation, for lack of a better description. Now, with those pros out of the way, I do not like how this hair typing system has been hijacked to divide and denigrate people and put folks down who look like me. Because here's the thing, going back to the chart, people with type 4 hair are the ones that I would say experience the worst amount of bias. But I don't think that is an intrinsic problem with this chart. I honestly think the problem is partly with us. And just hear me out. Just hear me out. A lot of the negativity that surrounds this chart is leftover baggage. Hair typing, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, is not new. Andre Walker made this chart, but the concept of hair typing comes from texturism, which texturism comes from the hair typing of slavery and even apartheid. Back in the day, our ancestors had a hair typing system that had two types, good hair and bad hair. And that particular principle, good hair and bad hair, has persisted through every single generation, every single iteration of our hair movements. Let's go back to people going back natural in the early 2000s. Yes, people should embrace their natural texture as long as your curls are this big. As long as you have a loose texture, then it's cool. But if you go natural and you have tiny little curls like mine, then you need to put a relaxer in your hair. You need to go get a perm. And that's not the fault of this system. That idea that proximity to whiteness, i.e. the straighter the hair, the better, has become attached to that hair system via the biases and texturism that we experience everywhere else in life. So I feel like if I just look at this chart, for me, it's always just been textures and numbers. I never really thought about it as an assessment of value or a ranking system. I just thought of it as 1 is straight, 4 is kinky. And I think that's in part because I don't attach, as much as I have had negative experiences and scarring to a degree behind the way we rank hair types, I haven't internalized that as much. I love my hair. Can't nobody tell me that my hair ain't the best hair in the world. My hair is up right now because I love my hair so much to protect it before anybody says anything. But I love my hair, and there's nothing anybody can say to me to make me feel like my hair is less than. It's just different. It's just different. But there is a camp that ultimately pushes this idea that your texture determines the quality of your hair, good or bad. And then there's that group of people that doesn't believe that at all, but you still carry the scars and you still carry some of the baggage of such an ignorant notion. The people, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be bad memories from your own childhood that told you that your hair was less than, it was bad, it was something wrong with it because it wasn't closer to the one on this chart. And I think attaching those biases to a chart like this becomes the most dangerous when we take this chart as law. So here's what I commented on this Instagram post. My comment was, hair typing is not inherently bad. It made it somewhat easier to describe and communicate the differences in our hair for the purposes of sharing information, buying products, finding professionals, etc. The problem is with the biases we attach to the types, and I blame that on the unhealed baggage of the textures we carry around as a community. And I also said, I want to add that just because a concept fails to be comprehensive does not mean it is totally useless. Saying that hair types serve no purpose because it does not account for other variables is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So Monarch Curl Studio actually responded to my comments. The first one, she said, Cannot tell you how many people I've helped determine better product selections for their lifestyle, and the chart was no part of that consideration. So many of us are wasting not only time, but money adhering to a chart that's as fictional as the Tooth Fairy. And I respect her opinion on this. Monarch Curl Studio is a neurodivergent curl specialist. And if you go to her Instagram profile, her work is absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But in terms of what she has said here, so many of us are wasting not only time, but money adhering to a chart that's as fictional as the Tooth Fairy. I argue that the chart's not fictional because it is a visual representation of differences in the visual appearance of people's hair, which in some ways, not all, translates to how we treat our hair differently. And the key word, adhering, we don't have to adhere to this chart as law. I have quote unquote hair that would be considered type 4 on this chart. Does that mean I have to only use products that are marketed for type 4 hair? No. Matter of fact, when I first started out, I was having great success with products from Herbal Essence of all places. And I even used some Garnier stuff that worked reasonably well. I have some other products like dandruff care products and some other things like that that have worked really, really well in my hair that are not necessarily made for type 4 hair, but for textured hair, period. Use what you want to use, experiment with what you want to experiment. Nobody says that you have to be married to these hair types or that you have to be married to these hair types or what they, influence in terms of your hair care regimen. So, second comment, do you know the history of the chart? We talked about that at the top of this video. When it was created and by whom, we talked about that at the top of this video. What its purpose was ultimately for when it was first published, we talked about that at the top of this video. And what was said for type 4 care recommendations. Now, another controversial point, it is said that Andre Walker recommended relaxers for women or men, whomever, that had quote unquote type 4 hair to increase manageability, to decrease breakage and things like that. But I'm honestly not gonna harp on that too much because this was the 90s. That was very, very, very common mindset. That's the reason that I got my first relaxer and kept one forever. That's the reason why everybody around me had relaxers, because they had subscribed to this idea that type 4 hair is, what we now call type 4 hair is inherently unmanageable, that it breaks more in this, that, and the other. But again, this is 30 years later, and we know better and we do better. It's not the tool, it's what we choose to do with the tool. So, in my opinion, just bottom line, I don't believe that we necessarily just should throw out and ban the hair typing system the way it has been in some spaces. Use it if you want to. Don't use it if you want to. Adhere to some of the common practices related to said hair typing system, or experiment a little. It's your hair. It's up to you. But regardless of whether you hair type or don't hair type, whatever your hair type, pattern, texture, porosity may be, don't you ever, and I want you to come in close, don't you ever let nobody make you feel like your hair is less than because it doesn't look like somebody else's, period, point blank. So with that being said, you guys, let me know your thoughts on hair typing and texturism. What do you think about it? Let me know down in the comments. And if y'all ever want to do a live or something and talk a little bit more about that, let me know. Let me know. But anyway, drop down in the comments. I invite you, if you're not subscribed, to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We talk all kinds of different topics here to help us become our best selves. So YouTube should be recommending something else for you to watch. If you want to hang around, I'd love to have you. If not, be sure to come on back later. So in the meantime, do what you love what you do, and no matter what anybody else says, embrace all of the unique and wonderful special parts of you. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.